Hello everybody, my name is Brady and we are back with another React video, and today we're going to be checking out something a little bit different. The video we're going to be watching is Don't Stay in School by Boyinaband. This isn't a genuine first reaction. I watched it when it first came out 6 years ago. Oh my god, I can't believe it's actually been that long, but yeah, it's 6 years old. And I remember really digging it. I thought it would be cool for me to revisit this video since I was in school at the time. I have stayed in school. I'm going for my master's degree, so I really stayed in school. I didn't go all in on making money. I picked something that I would want to do because I enjoyed it. So given my circumstances right now, I kind of wanted to know if this video held up, if I had any different thoughts based on all the changes that have gone on in my life since I first saw it. I thought it would be interesting, and a lot of you are still in school, so I'm curious to how this video holds up for all of you as well, and I'm very curious about your opinions. So we're gonna get this started. I'm gonna pause a bunch and give my thoughts on the individual points that he makes, and I'm hoping this is gonna be a lot of fun. Let's get started.
I wasn't taught how to get a job, but I can remember dissecting a frog. I wasn't taught how to pay tax, but I know loads about Shakespeare's classics. I was never taught how to vote. They devoted that time to defining isotopes. I wasn't taught how to look after my health, but mitochondria is the powerhouse
of the cell, yeah. Okay, that's the one that everybody knows. There is a very common, valid critique here. We are taught when we go through the school system that we have to kind of be realistic and give up our dreams. It's this sort of thing that makes you think that you have to be this sort of capitalist robot, go out there, make money, make some more, and then eventually you die. They don't really teach you how to live a fulfilling life. So when you're taught, hey, you gotta go out there and get money, then you look at what they're teaching you. Is this going to maximize my ability to go out there and make money? You could say that that's like not the best way to look at things, and maybe money isn't the end all be all. Maybe you can be happy and make maybe a modest living, do something more creative with your life, maybe something that's not considered as realistic. But just from the framing that school systems often give you, that you got to go out there, get a job, make money, then you'll look at some of these classes you take and you're like, am I really going to need that? So yeah, if they are not even going with their own framing, if they're teaching you things that aren't going to let you live up to that expectation they have for you, that's totally valid that you feel that way.
Spent a lesson on current events. Instead, I studied the old American West. I was never taught what laws there are. I was never taught what laws there are. Let me repeat, I was not taught the laws for the country I live in, but I know how Henry VIII killed his women. Divorced, beheaded, died. Divorced, beheaded, survived. Glad that's in my head instead of financial advice.
And I'm a history guy. So I love history, and I think history is important. I think a lot of history stuff could be made into like electives and stuff. I think that is definitely possible. And I think one thing that students really want is just the option to pick their direction a little bit earlier. You'll have these courses that you have to take like a minimum number of math, a minimum science or whatever. And I remember when I was in school, you didn't have to take that many history courses in high school. You could be done with your history stuff early on, and then you could keep going as part of like electives and whatever to fill like credits or whatever. But you didn't have to take as much as you would have to do in like these difficult math classes and these difficult science courses and stuff that I never ended up doing all too well in. But I went all in on the social studies stuff. But you can argue that all of that could be elective. I think one thing that students don't learn enough of, they'll learn history. I think the other social studies often don't get enough attention. I've never took, until I got to college, I never took a class straight up on economics. I think that could be very valuable in place of something like difficult algebra class. Like, I feel like you need up to maybe a little bit of algebra. Maybe some algebra 1 stuff would be nice for people to know. But like beyond that, a lot of that they don't know. Maybe they don't need to really know as much in their regular life. So maybe instead of that, they could go into like a social studies thing. The social studies guy kind of advocating for social studies here. Economics. It's kind of an approach to money that has a real world application there. I always thought that would be better, but that never got as much attention, at least not in my schooling. Everybody has kind of a different experience depending on where they're from, so I don't know what your situation is like, so I don't know how much you'd relate as much to this stuff.
I was shown the wavelengths of different hues of light, but I was never taught my human rights. Apparently there's 30. Do you know them? I don't. Why the hell can't we both recite them by rote? I know igneous, metamorphic, and sedimentary rocks, yet I don't know squat about trading stocks or how money works at all. Where does it come from? How does the thing that motivates the world function?
There we go. Yeah, the economics. That goes to my economic point. I do get cautious with Dave here. I love Dave's stuff. He's absolutely fantastic. He is working within the framework of what we are told we're supposed to be. And I like to emphasize that when it comes to this stuff. Like, he's just saying, like, you want me to be this. Why aren't you giving me what I need to be what you want me to be? But it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. I think we get caught into thinking, sorry about that we have to be these money-making machines, that we can't find fulfillment until we have like this strong economic comfort. Like, that's all we'll ever really need. But there's so many people who have plenty of money who are not necessarily happy with themselves. You could justify a lot of these courses if you weren't selling people on like, you have to make money all the time. You could say like, it's important to understand different cultures. There are cultural reasons why you might want to understand history and all that stuff. Some people may not buy into that stuff nearly as much, but I think it is important. Making it optional, though, is good because not everybody has the same set of values. Some people want to work within the system in different ways. Just because I think learning about cultural stuff is important doesn't mean that this guy over here who wants to just work with his hands shouldn't have like a vocational program that could teach him to function in a way that he wants to. I want people to be able to find fulfillment in their life. That's really it.
Not taught to budget and disperse my earnings. I was too busy there rehearsing cursive. Didn't learn how much it costs to raise a kid and what an affidavit is, but I spent days on what the quadratic equation is.
Cursive is kind of bull. I will say that. Like, I have not used cursive outside of a signature in so long. We learned it in 3rd grade, I think. We had to do it like all the time in 4th grade, and then I think once I got to middle school, they didn't make us do it anymore. Because the teachers, they didn't want to have to grade people's handwritten papers that are written in cursive because nobody can read it. Honestly, cursive has some importance. It's just another one of those things. You don't need it to get by. So if you're just being completely practical, and that's what Dave is doing here, is just practical, work within this system that wants you to make money, you don't need it nearly as much. Maybe there are some places in which case it's good to understand cursive, but not everybody's going to actually need that.
To b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. That's insane. That's absolutely
Can't follow that.
We learned that over basic first aid, or how to recognize the most deadly mental disorders or diseases with preventable causes, or how to buy a house with a mortgage if I could afford it, because abstract maths was deemed more important than advice that would literally save thousands of lives. But it's cool, because now I could tell you if the number of unnecessary deaths caused by that choice was prime.
I remember talking with a teacher. This is back in high school, maybe even middle school, I'm not sure. We always had like homeroom, which we would spend maybe an hour in, or like later on they called it advisory, where we had to do like these stupid little portfolio stuff, but mostly it was just you kind of sitting around. I talked to plenty of my teachers around the time and think like, why don't we use this time to do other stuff? And one of my teachers was like, yeah, like I agree, it would be nice. none of my classmates liked the idea. A lot of them really valued that time. And I think there is a point to like, yeah, it might be good for them to have a little bit of downtime throughout the day. So that's a perfectly valid counter argument to this. But we talked about what if the advisory teacher, who basically just oversees you just talking with your friends, just make sure you don't cause any major problems or whatever. What if they taught you how to balance a checkbook, or like those very basic things that you're probably going to need one day to work within this economic system that we have, but instead we just kind of sit around. Like I said, that time you can argue is very valuable, but we also definitely do have time that could be spent on that practical stuff. Like my home ec class, I think we learned how to sew. And I don't remember how to sew. And I don't think that sewing is useless, but I think there might have been some better things that we could have learned for home economic stuff, you know?
Practical medicines, but I was told what the ancient Hippocratic method is. I've got a headache, the pain is ceaseless. What should I take? Maybe try some leeches? Could we discuss domestic abuse and get the facts, or how to help my depressed friend with a mental state? No, but learn mental maths, because you won't have a calculator with you every day. They say it's not...
I don't know if it's the teacher's fault on this. I don't think they understood that we would all have a calculator with us every day, but the fact that they said that all the time with so much confidence. Also, we could have had a calculator with us every day. That's one of the things we could have changed. I've had calculators so small that it could fit in like my wallet. Like I could have a calculator every day if I really wanted to, if I needed it. If I felt that I needed it, then yes, I could have a calculator every day. But now that we have the calculators on phones or whatever, it's even more ironic there. And I think a lot of teachers lost a lot of credibility because of making such an absolute statement like that, trying to validate this thing that they were just having trouble validating. They needed to make it seem as if like, this is absolutely necessary, so what do you say? You won't have a calculator with you every day. When everybody finds out, oh, that it turns out that's wrong, now everybody lost a whole bunch of credibility with these past students who are going to talk down, kind of rightfully, to the school system. There's something there.
Not the kids, the parents are the problem. Then if you taught the kids to parent, that's the problem solved then. All this advice about using a condom, but none for when you actually have a kid when you want one. I'm only fluent in this language. For serious, the rest of...
Like the sex ed stuff, I don't know how... He's English, so I don't know what it's like over there. As far as like European countries go, they are kind of on the conservative side, and we do have plenty of pretty conservative states here when it comes to sex ed. There are some wonderful schools that do have pretty good sex ed programs and who are able to provide have systems to provide birth control to teenage students and whatever who want it, and make sure they have access to that sort of stuff. So there are some systems that are better than others within this. In the United States, it's very much a state-by-state thing. So I don't know as much what it's like over there, but I'd imagine they're a little bit more on the conservative side as far as like European countries go.
That the world speaks to? Do you think I'm an idiot? You chose the solo over
what was that?
Which for serious, the rest of the...
Sorry.
You actually have a kid when you want one. I'm only fluent in this language. For serious, the rest of the world speaks to? Do you think I'm an idiot? You chose the solo over the political system, so like a typical citizen now I don't know what I'm voting on. Which policy...
Yeah. It's hard to teach politics in a public school system because, like, the parents will always be like, "Oh, you're indoctrinating our kids." How do you even work with that? It's a pain, and honestly, I don't know how to perfectly do that. With the language thing is interesting. That definitely depends more on where you're from. There are some places where it's more important to learn two languages because you'll be able to use them more practically. Like there's some places in the United States where there are large Spanish-speaking populations. There are bilingual countries. There are some countries where it's not that necessary for you to learn a second language because you won't find as much opportunity to use it. So I think that's another one of those things that just depends on where you're from, really. It's good to know a second language just to know a second language. That's good too. But that's another one of those cases where it's like, give them the choice to learn the second language. You know, that's how I feel about that sort of thing. I could just as much make the argument that to learn a second language, depending on where you're from, is another one of those things that might be a waste of time for somebody. Because, like, when would they end up using it? Some people will never encounter somebody with a foreign language, or very rarely encounter somebody speaking a foreign language.
These exist or how to make them change. Mais oui, je parle un peu de français. So at 18 I was expected to elect a representative for a system I had never ever been presented with. But I won't take it. I'll tell everyone my childhood was wasted. I'll share it everywhere how I was educated, and insist these pointless things don't stay in school.
Hold on. I remember this being a thing. He had a little note at the end. If you can't explain why a subject is applicable to most people's lives, that subject should not be mandatory. Yeah. Introduce those topics, yes. But we should choose if we want to learn more. Nobody should be forced to learn something that isn't practical. Yeah. Pretty sick. Yeah, that's a really strong conversation starter, I think, because there is a certain degree to which you have to be practical, and it's like you have to go out there, make money, and get ahead in life. But there's also this little conversation of we want people to have options to pursue other things. We want people to understand culture. We want people to pursue a language, even if it's something that they want to do. We want people to have options. It would be lame if we were all these perfect capitalist robots and nobody really pursued anything unless it fit the end of making a whole bunch of money. But there is definitely something here about offering people as much choice as possible, because we have to understand that everybody is incredibly diverse in what they are interested in, what they want to get out of life. Sometimes the school system feels like a one-size-fits-all sort of thing, and except it doesn't exactly fit all. That's kind of like the problem there. So I love schools that offer like vocational programs. I went to a school that had one. I didn't really do it myself, but it was nice that the option was there, and it would be nice if more schools are able to offer that sort of stuff. Sometimes the schools have their hands behind their back, funding, whatever. Schooling is difficult. Administration is difficult. But this does act as a very strong critique of what people generally want to get out of the education system. They want people to have different options. They want it to not just be one system for everybody, but like a very complex series of systems that people can get different outcomes out of, because we are all going to probably take slightly different routes through life. So that's a thing. This video, I think it holds up pretty well. I think at the time I was more just flat out in like Dave's corner, just like, yeah, don't do things that you can't make money out of. Like, don't give me that. If I can't make money out of it, then yeah, that sort of thing. But now I think more like, now that I've gone in a direction where I'm pursuing a field that doesn't have a lot of jobs, doesn't make a lot of money, but I feel kind of fulfilled learning and pursuing that, I think, okay, I understand why not everything has to have like a perfect practical application, because there are things besides money in the world that you can get your fulfillment out of, and there are other things that are really important to learn in life, and it differs from person to person. That was cool though, and I actually really enjoyed this. This was a nice little thought exercise, because I haven't reevaluated my feelings on the school system in a while. I've gone through a lot of political changes, and the pandemic definitely forced me to think more about how I think about politics and stuff like that. But now that we're kind of getting towards the tail end of things, I kind of want to reevaluate how I feel about a lot of things, and this was just one of many little thought exercises that I'm hoping to do going forward. So thank you guys for watching this video. Dave did a good job on this, and this really does make you think. And even if it's not like going to present you with a perfect solution or whatever, that is going to be like easily put into action, if it gets a conversation started, that's important. I think that in itself is huge. And I remember people talking like crazy when this video came out, so it did some good stuff. So I'm looking forward to checking out more different stuff on the channel. So if you have any suggestions, pop them in the comment section below, and I will see you guys tomorrow with another video. All right.